listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey folks, happy Thursday evening. This is Scotty Roberts. You're listening to my program, the Intrepid radio program, right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY1.com. Come on over, see all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio. And at the same time, come on over to my YouTube channel. You know the drill if you've been listening for a while now. You can listen to the show on Odyssey, then come on over and join in on the video simulcast at YouTube and join the live chat room, which is going on right now. So come on over to youtube.com/ if you're new here, Mr. Scotty Roberts. And welcome tonight. Good to have you on board. And sorry we took a last-minute break last night. Had a full day going on yesterday and all kinds of things. And sometimes the world just orchestrates against you getting anything done timely and orderly. And so that is what happened yesterday. So we didn't have a show and we had to cancel out. I was going to go live and still couldn't do that at the last minute. So forgive my absence yesterday. Welcome back today. It's Thursday, almost the end of the week. Now, even me, somebody who works every day of the week, always here. My office is always here. It's in my home. My studio's in my home. My work is in my home. My wife is in my home. My kids are in my home. Thursday and Friday still look pretty good when they start coming. I go, it's the weekend. But nothing really changes from day to day to day. It's just that psychological factor. It's the end of another week. And you know what? We got 1 week left, less than a week, 5 days until the presidential elections here in the United States. And so everybody hang on to your butts. It's going to be very interesting. You're not going to hear much less of what you've been hearing. And but it'll be very interesting to see what the outcome is. And I dare say, unless the sitting president, Donald Trump, wins in an absolute landslide, there's going to be months of, you think last time when he won the electoral vote, and it was a close tie, you think that they spent 4 years trying to delegitimize him and not recognize him. Wait till you have an election here with all the mail-in stuff and all the crap that's going on around it, and he wins by a slight margin. You're going to have the same thing for 4 more years. So he is doing good, though. He's doing good things. So look into it, and you'll see what he's accomplished, what he's accomplishing. And so it might be worth the ride. So good thing is, election's in just 5 days. So hang on to your butts. And now I want to talk about some things that we were talking about and we left off talking about the other day. And that's this whole thing of, because my 13th wedding anniversary to my wife Rainey was on Tuesday, and that would be not the 15th anniversary of our meeting, but little more than 15 years together, and 13th year since our wedding anniversary. And it made me think about some of the things that we all go through in marriage. My relationship, as I've said, not a bed of roses all the way along. It's pretty good. Well, there's some hang-ups. There's things that everybody, the two of us, everybody, we still have our stuff. We still work through things. And that's 13 years in. I would dare see 23 years in. We're probably not going to be perfected, but we'll at least get a few more kinks worked out. So there's always stuff. And there's always things that relationships have fault lines. And there's ways to prevent hidden conflicts. Relationships have, we talked about the other day, on Tuesday, we talked about how relationships have these, what did I call them? The little things that mount up, the little cruelties that we can have toward each other. Why are we not that way with our friends, but we're that way with who is supposed to be the closest friend we have, our spouse? Yet we find little niggling ways to get out. I did that this morning. Very kind to my wife this morning. Lots of great talk, and she had to run off and do a massage today. She'll probably be back not too long. And, morning's going fine, but I'm picking things up and I'm doing things around the house, even after she left for doing the massage. And I got that little niggling voice in my head that's saying, why don't she do this more often? Or why doesn't she do that? And you know what I have to take into consideration? The fact that she's busy. She's got a life that's going on alongside of our life together. And where I have said we spend too much time being independent in the world, in relationships in general, that whole line of the last few decades has been, you have to be independent, and if you're not happy, they can't be happy. And there might be some truth to that, but you can have a happy marriage when you don't isolate yourself in your marriage, and you don't try to make yourself so independent from it that it takes second place. The independence that we both have as spouses in a marriage, men and women, is an independency that's interdependent on each other. And so there are problems, though, that rise up. There's things, there's little sticking things. And those are things, by the way, this morning that I chose. I'm not going to say anything about that. It's just me. It's me being picky. It's not my wife doing anything wrong. And so you have to work yourself through those things, conquer your attitudes, and move on, as some of the things we talked about the other day. But now there's this thing, and I wanted to bring this up because I've heard this many, many times over the years. There's this don't ask, don't tell your family about certain things. Is your marriage having problems? Is it on the brink? The worst possible thing you can do is share that with your family. Be very careful what you say to the ones that are close to you. Let's say your marriage is rocky right now. Maybe your husband is emotionally unavailable, and you strongly suspect he might be having an affair. Maybe your wife never wants to have sex. You're so miserable about your home life, you can't even concentrate at work. You're so desperate that either divorce or separation of some kind starts looking like a reasonable option. And by the way, I don't think divorce is a reasonable option. It's a reasonable option in certain cases. It's a horrible option when it's just a way to get out of what you're doing, rather than fixing what you're doing, especially if you have a family with kids. Let's move on from that. We've talked about that already. So you turn to your friends. You go out and have a beer. You go out and have coffee. You go shopping with your friends, whatever it is you do. So you go out with your friends, you go out with your family members. You just need that shoulder to lean on, somebody to cry to, somebody to hear you when maybe your husband or your wife isn't. And you tell them all about the problems in your marriage. Have you been there? If you had problems in your marriage, you go, Mom, I got to talk to you about this. Hey, Dad, got to talk to you. Hey, brother, whoever, sister, I got to talk about this shit. I got to get it out. And you tell these problems to your closest family and friends. And you talk about how maybe, I'm just using hypotheticals, your spouse doesn't understand you or your needs. You share the many ways in which your spouse is selfish, insensitive, deceitful, and controlling, and how he or she is completely unwilling to change, even if those are just your perceptions, and that person isn't a terrible person. If you share those perceptions, you start sharing the way you are feeling in your marriage. Now, feeling something, by the way, isn't always necessarily the truth of the matter. There might be something much deeper. There might be something with you that is controlling the way you perceive somebody else. So all of that said, you start sharing this with family and friends. The support and the empathy is what you're after. And you'd like to talk about your predicament to your other friends, your other family members who might have a sympathetic ear. My mom loves me. Therefore, she'll listen to what I have to say, says the wife or the female partner. The guy is like, hey, my buddies know, my dad understands this stuff. And so the advice you get feels right from all these people. I can't believe your husband treats you that way. You shouldn't have to put up with it. Your wife doesn't deserve you, man. You're so good to her. You're better than any man I've ever seen to a woman. And you're so good to her, and she's so self-absorbed, she can't see it. Vindicated and bolstered from either one of those fronts, we leave these conversations feeling a lot better about where we're at. And you're right. Your spouse is wrong. And that's all good now. It's all been resolved. Now, weeks could turn into months or years. Nothing changes in your marriage. With each passing day, you grow increasingly unhappy, and now your marital beefs become your daily mantra. You've looped your loved ones in on what's the ongoing saga of your marriage, and your marriage gone wrong, and so they know everything. You haven't told your spouse that you're sharing all these intimate details, and probably if your husband or wife ever heard the things you were sharing to your family members who have a sympathetic ear, your spouse might go, wait a minute, that's not how that happened. Or wait a minute, you're telling a very one-sided story there because you haven't worked out the details together. So eventually you're going to be urged, they're going to start wondering, what did that jerk do to you today? You could say, I'm not feeling good today. I'm down today. Oh, what did that jerk do to you today? What did that bitch do to you today? Those are the kinds of responses you start getting. You know why? Because you built that up with them. Eventually, you're going to be urged to cut your losses and get out of your marriage. And your friends and family can't stand to see you hurt any longer. And they may only have a one-sided story. Because they love you, care about you. Your friends and family can't stand to see you in this position. They want you to get on with your life. Enough is enough, they might tell you, and start offering suggestions about divorce attorneys or, hey, you should talk to Bob. I know Bob, he's in my office, he's a single guy. He'd understand. They're trying to hook you up already. Ever seen that? And as you're about to see, while it might feel comforting to know that there are people who love, support, and understand you, relying on family and friends in this way can easily backfire. And it can cause a shitstorm in your marriage. For starters, when you discuss your marital issues with close friends and close family, they hear only your side of the story, which by definition is incomplete. It's skewed. It's biased. It is your version of how you feel. It might be very real for you, but it is still a skewed, one-sided version of what's going on. But this doesn't stop your loved ones from diagnosing your spouse as the problem. It's your husband. He's the jerk. He's the dick. Get rid of him. I knew this. I knew this from the day you guys got married 8 years ago. I knew this was so. I knew he'd turn into a jerk. Only, this is just coming out now. And their loyalty to you blinds them from seeing or understanding the context in which the marital problems have developed over time. That wife of yours, that little bitch, all she wants is, she wants something from you. She wants kids, she wants this and that. She doesn't love you. I've heard people say that to me in times past. And they fail to recognize how maybe, just maybe, your actions may have triggered your spouse to behave in undesirable ways. Maybe what they see in that jerk of a spouse that you have is something that's brought on because they're not looking for what a jerk you are in the marriage. See, it's a two-way street. That's because you might be unaware of your own contribution to your relationship struggles. It's often hard to see the forest through the trees, isn't it? And so, beside the fact that your cronies, your family, your friends might be short-sighted and biased in terms of your perspective on things, they want to support you. They love you. You're my friend. You're my daughter. You're my whatever. And they want to stand with you. They might be short-sighted and biased in terms of your perspective on things. There's an even more problematic twist when it comes to turning to loved ones for support during marital strife or marital questions, marital problems. And here it is. You might change your mind about your spouse. What if something goes on and you guys fix your problems? You find ways to fix that path. And you're like, oh, I do love you. Let's do this. And you start off on that road again together to fix things. You've changed your mind. So if your spouse starts being kinder, or if you start seeing that their acts have been kind all along, and you start helping in that, if your spouse becomes more considerate, more loving, more involved, sexier, communicative, all of those things, you're encouraged and you can't wait to share your good news with your inner circle. Oh, my husband, my wife, they're amazing. You know those things I used to talk about? They've really taken it on board to understand where I was coming from. And now I'm starting to understand my spouse, my other person. And we're working on this, and he's such a good person, she's such a good person. But when you do that, lo and behold, your friends and family aren't all that impressed. They're not happy, they're far from it. They're skeptical or filled with contempt. And they tell you, can't you see that he's just trying to manipulate you? She's on her best behavior, but it's not going to last, buddy. Once a cheater or a liar, always a cheater or a liar. You know, you've been wanting to get out of your marriage, and now you're being brainwashed to stay. Here was your out. The door was open. You could leave that idiot. And you know what? Now you've been brainwashed. Now you're going to stay there. So your friends and family, they're frustrated and angry because you've leaned on them and basked in their emotional support, and now you want to stay married. And you want to work things out. That's simply unacceptable to those people. So you try to explain that things are different now. You give examples of all this thoughtful things, all this thoughtfulness that your spouse is doing to show that he or she cares. But they won't budge. You just don't understand why those family members of yours are so stubbornly clinging to their negative views of your mate. Why aren't they happy for you that your marriage has turned a corner and it's improving and it's getting better? Why don't they see the changes in your spouse? And if they really loved you, regardless of what they think about your spouse, shouldn't they just want you to be happy, even if they don't agree with your decisions? That's what they love you and they care about you. They might not agree with you, but they don't have to. I was once deeply saddened by a situation, much like the ones that I've described already. A couple married for 10 years, and they had 2 young children. And the wife was desperately unhappy because her husband, a workaholic, had been emotionally distant, uninvolved with the children, critical and demeaning of her. And because of her unhappiness, she spent extended periods of time with her parents and siblings who live out of town. And her husband felt neglected. Where do you go all the time? Lonely, unappreciated. So rather than discuss their feelings openly and honestly with each other, they argued and retreated to separate corners. And their relationship, rather than being intimate partners, seemed more like toddlers engaging in parallel play. And to satisfy a deep void from within, the husband turned to what? You guessed it, sex outside the marriage. Lots of it. Found himself in a web of sexually compulsive behavior. His wife, though emotionally detached, sensed something was not right and began to sleuth work to entrap him. She solicited help from a computer-savvy relative, and within a short period of time, got all the information she needed to make a decision about her marriage. She wanted out. Her siblings cheered her on, and the once adored husband, brother, son-in-law got slapped with a scarlet letter and was ostracized from a family he dearly loves. And by the way, his seeking things outside the marriage, behind his wife's back, he kind of deserves the slap in the face, but that's beside the point I'm making. The wife, can you ever drive somebody to do that? If you have a spouse and you stop giving them attention because of whatever your perception is of them, they might stop giving you attention and giving it somewhere else. So the wife, and I'm not justifying actions, I'm just telling you, this is the way it is. The wife sought legal advice, announced her intentions to divorce her husband. He was crushed. He begged her to come home for a 2-day intensive time of trying to work this out. As is often the case with these challenging but productive intensives, this couple decided to tackle the issue that led them astray and recommit to working on their marriage rather than a divorce. Though well aware that the road to recovery would be fraught with challenges and hard work, nonetheless, a feeling of optimism was palpable with these two. Until they got home. Upon hearing the news of possible reconciliation, the woman's family was livid, outraged. Her brothers and sisters have vacillated between refusing to talk to her and nonstop harassing on the telephone. As weeks passed, in spite of impressive, heartfelt, profoundly life-transforming work with these two people, the work they've been doing on themselves and the work they've been doing with their marriage, the family of the woman hadn't swayed. As if her dealing with complicated and painful marital issues and the detailed disclosure about his sexually compulsive behavior weren't enough, now there was this on top of it. Now, I was hopeful that they would eventually come around, the family, and my heart hurt for them when they told me about the family's reaction to her decision to try to work things out. But I wasn't surprised. I've seen this dynamic many times before. I've been in that dynamic before. Believe me. So here's some advice. If you're someone considering divorce, or your marriage is on the rocks, or you're having trouble, you're trying to work things out, you don't know what to do, where to go, it's reasonable to assume that you'll want to discuss your situation with people closest to you, your good friends, your relatives. Now, understand that when you do, they're going to naturally take your side. And the more information you share about your spouse's wrongdoings, the more your friends and your families are going to object to his or her presence in your life. So if you sense that your loved ones are becoming biased, it's wise to limit your complaints about your spouse and your complaints about your marriage. Consult with a therapist or somebody instead. Don't take it to your closest friends and family. Make sure you hire somebody who can be objective and help you work things through. Don't expect your family to be able to readily switch the gears about your spouse's potential to change just because you have and you've changed your mind. They may just need more time. And whatever you do while they catch up to you, don't allow their pessimism to thwart your marriage-saving plans. David Ben-Gurion, first Prime Minister of Israel, once said, "Anyone who doesn't believe in miracles is not a realist." So you know what? We're at the end of the first half. I want you to consider those things. If you're having trouble in your relationship, the last people you want to share that with are friends and family, especially moms and dads. Work it out. Find another way. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. You sit tight. On more of this when we come back.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
All right, folks, thanks for sitting on through that break. This is Scotty Roberts. Welcome back to my show, the Intrepid radio program, right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY1.com. Come on over, see all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio. At the same time, I want you to come on over to the YouTube channel, watch the video simulcast of this show, and join the live chat room that's going on right now. If you want to talk to anybody about stuff that's going on in your relationship, don't tell your folks. Don't tell your parents. Don't tell your closest friends. Come on over to the chat room. Talk to some people over there. They're going to share some insights with you. And to get over to the chat room, just go over to my YouTube channel. YouTube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts. Now, relationships. That's what we've been talking about. Relationships have, as I mentioned way at the very beginning, they have fault lines. There's hidden conflicts. And there are ways to get to your happy relationships. Especially if your marriage is on the rocks and you don't think there's hope for it. And then you have to ask yourself, why should there be hope? Why should I do anything differently? Why should I pursue trying to make my marriage better when I'm done? I'm just done. I'm done. I don't want to be in here anymore. Especially if you have kids in the mix. Because it's worthwhile. It's worth doing. It's worth fixing. I'm going to tell you something, and we all know this already. The green pastures aren't always green, or as green as they look from this side of the fence. So if all you want to do is get out of the marriage you're in so you can find your happiness somewhere else, I guarantee you're going to bring the things that contribute to the unhappiness in your marriage along with you. You're not the perfect person that was tainted by the bad partner. And by bad partner, many times, it's not even, it's the need to do something different. Why do you think they talk about men having midlife crises? Is that because he hates his wife? No. It's because he's losing touch with his virility. He's losing touch with his youth. And sometimes psychologically, that plays really hard on a guy. Women can go through midlife crises too. There's all kinds of things that can happen that the other person isn't really causing the problem. And so you could leave your marriage and think that that's the solution. I'm free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. To do what? Go have sex with other people? Sow your wild oats? Try your hand at that business that your spouse was totally willing to help you do, but you want to do it on your own? All those kinds of things. You can think of 1,000 hypotheticals. And that's the problem, is we have 1,000 hypotheticals, which are 1,000 ways out. So why do we want to look for a way out? There was a couple that split after 30 years of marriage. And it was in the wake of yet another fight about money. What do they say? They say finances are one of the greatest causes of division in married couples. Sometimes it's we're spending too much money, or you spend too much money, or you don't bring in enough money, or we're not making enough money, and yada, yada, yada. And they think, oh, breaking up this partnership will do us much better financially. Now, maybe if somebody's abusing your finances, that's a different story. But for the most part, said most people in America are pretty average income earners. And sometimes, not like in my case, for 10 years I was the sole breadwinner. And I didn't make lots of money. So we had our ups and downs. Now that my wife is working again, that's contributing. And it's getting better. But then when I have my downs, she'll have her ups and vice versa. And so finances, though, tend to be the biggest problem in relationships. But if it went far deeper than that, during this final conflict I was talking about over money with this couple, the wife tapped the fault line of their relationship. Her conviction, voiced in ways both overt and covert through all their years together, that her husband was inadequate in all ways, started to really wreak havoc on their relationship. And it was really precipitated by the money problem. She expressed her disappointment in his earning power and the state of their finances. And she expressed this to his brother. And Rick had a somewhat competitive relationship with his brother. And this guy did. And Ted, the brother, that's what we'll call him, had a difficult, somewhat competitive relationship with the husband. And so when Ted called his brother Rick, asking if they needed financial help, Rick felt humiliated and betrayed. And he exploded with anger at his wife. And their marriage ended in an emotional earthquake, a tumultuous day of screaming what had been hinted and whispered for decades. They'd been married for 30 years. You know what? Sometimes married couples can be married for 30 years and still struggle financially. Did you know that happens? My wife and I have been married for 13 years. We still aren't millionaires. We still struggle sometimes from month to month. So like earthquake fault lines, relationship fault lines lie submerged in deep, largely unexpressed feelings of anger, resentment. I resent you because you didn't make me a trophy wife. You didn't make enough money, so I don't have to work. I resent you because you don't have sex with me as much. Whatever it might be. All of those things. So as a marriage and a family start having these problems, it's good to start seeing somebody, not family, who can help you understand and work out these problems and see if there are ways to make the thing better. There's been a lot of relationships I've seen in jeopardy. I've seen a lot of good friends divorced over the years. I've been divorced over the years. It's not always from constant fighting, but from the conflicts that simmer under the surface. You can look at a couple and say, on the surface, they look pretty good. But just below that surface, there's cracks, there's fissures, and steam is escaping in weird areas. And the words left unspoken, the disagreements not discussed. Then a stressor comes along, and it brings that fault line to the surface, sometimes with disastrous results. So how can you prevent, how can I prevent, how can all of us prevent relationship-threatening fault lines from cracking wide open and destroying us? And I got a few things here I want you to look at. I got 4 things. Number 1, don't let your conflicts with your spouse go underground. You get what I mean by that? Take the risk of discussing your feelings in real time with your spouse. And to be sure, this isn't always easy. You might fear telling your spouse how you feel for a variety of reasons. Maybe imagine if you have been suspecting, maybe with good cause, that your spouse is in an affair. And several times you've been in the same room and you're just right on the tip of your tongue, hey, have you been having sex with somebody else? I just really need to know. Are you having an affair with somebody because of this, and this, and I have these? You can have those questions on the tip of your tongue. You know what? They never come out. You know why? We're afraid of it. Or there's fear in telling your spouse that you suspect this, and you're asking them the question to, you're already convinced in your mind they'd lie to you anyway, but you need to ask it. And there's a variety of reasons, such as not wanting to hurt their feelings, or risk their wrath, or have them verify it and walk away from you. Or you might hesitate because you feel that this particular conflict has no easy solution. And I'm not talking about just an affair. I'm talking about any kind of conflict. And there's little chance of resolution at all. So if these feelings or others are keeping you from addressing an issue, you might choose to try, in the presence of a marriage counselor, to express your feelings. Somebody that's an objective third party might be somebody that's easier to have this discussion with. They can keep the discussion productive and proactive instead of going, yeah, I told you 8 years ago you shouldn't have married that jerk. That's family. Or you might choose to keep your discussion between the two of you, but try it when you have ample time and privacy. I kept all kinds of anger about the way my husband's family treated me. There's one woman I knew of that said this. It was really coming between us. Finally, I told him that I needed time alone with him on a Saturday night instead of going out with friends. And we made a nice dinner together, and I started talking, telling him how I felt when his father and his brother said mean things to me, about my trouble conceiving, my dedication to my career. I told my husband that I felt very angry about their remarks, which I consider mean and inappropriate. And I've been hurt too. My husband doesn't defend me when they start in. Even though I know he hates scenes and also has his own issues with the men in his family, we talked for hours. And even though there's no easy, instant answer, we came away feeling that this is a problem we can handle. We can do this. And I got to tell you, when you're a spouse and you don't defend your spouse when somebody is degrading them, you better stand up. I've done that before. I've had people in my family that have criticized my wife. And because I kind of agreed with some of what they were saying, it was just their delivery that was the problem, I had a big issue with that. And I didn't take care of business. Remember when I said Randy and I had some problems a few years ago? 5-6 years back? Some of that was at the core of that. It was my not defending her when somebody... And it wasn't... Let me correct that. My family loves my wife. It wasn't degrading talk. It was negative talk. And I don't even need to bring up what was said, but I'll tell you what, it hurt Rainey's feelings. And at the time, I didn't stand and defend her. Now, I will tell you, since that, I've had a friend that was in on a lot of that. And that friend is somebody who... I remember sitting in an airport, and I was having a video conversation with a friend of mine that does not like my wife. And my friend leaned into the camera and he said, "Lose that bitch." And I sat back and I looked in the camera and I said, "You got to stop talking that way about my wife." I said, you've experienced some of the problems my wife and I have had. You've seen it up close and personal as a friend. But I'll tell you something, we have chosen to be together and to work on our issues. And I said, I need you as my friend to support that. And I didn't go far enough to say, and if you don't, we're done as friends. I left that impression, though. It's that you gotta, either you support me or you don't. I said, I love my wife and I need you, and this is several years ago now. I said, I need you to support my wife with me. I said, I don't want to hear that talk again about her. You might have your own things that you've built up as you can justify what you're saying, but you can't justify that to me anymore because we have chosen to work all of that stuff out. So you know what? It's a problem you can handle together. So that first thing, don't let your conflicts go underground. And then tap into the stuff we talked about in the first half hour. Don't let other people that are close to you govern what you're doing while you're going underground with your problems. Number 2, approach your differences in a loving rather than hostile way. Oh, man. If you've got a problem with your spouse, you ever want to just lay into him? Yeah, well, you son of a bitch. I'm going to give you an earful now. Or do you find ways to be courageous and kind? Many times when we're hurt, we don't want to be kind to anybody else, especially this spouse with whom we've given everything. We've opened our hearts to them. We've become vulnerable. We've opened our legs. They know us naked and afraid in many sorts of ways. And when you don't get out from that person what you expected, maybe your expectations are too high. That's another issue altogether. We talked about expectations a few weeks ago. But when you don't feel your needs are being met, you can explode. You either go quiet and you part your way, or you have a moment where, again, that stressor, that fissure can crack open, and man, it's a volcano. It's one comedian once put it long ago. He says, when my wife gets mad, he says it's more like, she doesn't just yell. He says it's like, her eyes start to glow fire. And he says her face splits and curls back to reveal a flaming red-hot skull, saying, I can't believe you did that thing. Now, you might recognize who that comedian is. And so sometimes those fissures crack open, and that's what's revealed. The anger comes out, as opposed to the wanting to be kind and work it out. So I'm going to challenge you right now. Approach your differences in a loving, kind way, rather than a hostile, angry way. It's easy to lose your temper when emotions run hot. But hostility can drive a conflict underground. It can keep it unresolved. It can keep it simmering. And approaching a difficult topic with love and openness can keep the conversation civil and the prospect of compromise and mutual understanding much more possible. Does that sound sing-songy to you? Oh, I think I will put my anger away and just be kind and understanding and loving to work this situation out. You know what? Are you going to tell me that it's not possible to do? Because I can refute that really easy. On a psychological level, at a personal level. It's very easy to do. Being angry is easier, because we all get pissed off about stuff. I'll give you a silly example. Part of the reason I couldn't make it on air last night, my internet went out. And I spent the day dealing with these people. Let's call it a shitty cable company or internet company with good people that work for them, but shitty results in their customer service. And we're in a small town, or years ago, we'd have left this company, but it's really the only game in town. And the other game in town is just as bad. It's a local company. And if we just lived 12 miles, 10-minute drive on the highway, that way, we'd have Comcast or AT&T. Or down that way, 8 miles, Xfinity. But our city council voted on this company. So we've got this company, nationwide company. And they suck. So my internet was out yesterday. About 9:30 yesterday morning, I was told, we've got it all taken care of. You should be up and running. I said, good. I said I have a couple of things today. I do radio and I've got to be. And so the day went, and I was gone most of the day yesterday. I was out. And I arrived back here about 10 minutes before I had to be on the radio with somebody else. And I'll just say with Rocky. And I got home with 9 minutes to spare, and my internet still wasn't up. 8 hours later. And I called, and they said, well, we'll put the order in right now. We should be able to get you up and running. Well, then by the time I was going to do my show live last night, because I didn't get a chance to pre-record it. I hadn't even put an announcement out yet. I was waiting to see what my internet was going to do. And so by 8 p.m., 1 hour before I'd go on live, I'd already missed doing the show with Rocky. And so at 8 p.m., called them back. Well, their offices are closed for the day. Call back tomorrow. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. The wizard is gone. Come back. He says, come back tomorrow. And so I was livid. I was pissed. And I tried to call their 24/7, it says on the website. I got the website through my phone because my internet at home wasn't working. 24/7 live help. And every time I called, it would disconnect me or it wouldn't connect me with a live person. I tried 3 times. So I was out. By this morning, I woke up, internet still gone. It's not fixed. They don't open their offices till 9 o'clock a.m. Central Time. Or 8 a.m., I'm sorry. And so I took the kids to school. I came back. I got on the phone. What is going on? Now, here's what I'm talking about. All that long story to say, sometimes when you're angry and you're disappointed, kindness isn't the first thing that simmers to the top. The fissure broke open this morning. And I got that representative on the phone this morning from this company. And I said, look, I prefaced it by saying, you're talking to a guy who is absolutely livid right now. And I said, I want you to don your steel panties because I'm going to be kind of mean and caustic because I'm really angry, but it's not you. So it's not you. Don't take it personally. But you're the rep I have to talk to, and you're going to get an earful right now. And I gave this woman an earful. And she really tried, and she tried, and she found the thing to do. And within an hour of talking with her, while I was still talking to her, by the way, they got my internet working. I'm like, glory be. And I said, thank you very much. And she was so happy. She was like laughing. I'm so happy. I'm so happy I took care of this for you. And I said, I'm sorry I was so angry. I said, I tried to preface it and warn you. I'm angry. I'm going to deal with this angrily. That's one of my shortcomings. That's not the big things. The little things can piss the shit out of me. And I was so pissed off by this because I also work on the internet, folks. You guys know that. And I can't get my work done. I can't do what I need doing. And so, anyway, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I expressed my anger, not my kindness. And then I tried to manage and temper my anger with kindness, and it was still rough. So, in this couple I'm talking about they're approaching a difficult topic, trying to make things work, trying to find compromise. Oh, and by the way, I want to tell you this. Yesterday when I was talking to somebody on the phone at this company, it was like talking to the sloth at the DMV counter in the animated movie Zootopia. Well, hello. Can I help you? Yes, you can help me. I got this thing and I got to be on the radio in 9 minutes now, 8.5 minutes. I said, can you help? Yes. Can you tell me your account number. Yes, I punched it in. Your automated service asked me to punch it in when I started. Did you not get it? It was my mistake for asking another question. Well, the automated system doesn't always. God! I got down to 7 minutes now, and that person was still talking. We were 8 minutes, almost 9 minutes in, still getting information for me to Can you verify your phone number? Can you verify your date of birth? Can you verify your blood type? That's why I got built up yesterday. Okay, anyway, moving on from that. So now in this couple we're talking about, many years ago, Rick, the husband, might say, I feel that I'm disappointing you. And that hurts me. It makes me feel frustrated and sad. I want to be a good husband. What would you like different in our relationship? What can I do? What can we do together to make things better? Guys, have you ever talked that way to your wife when they're having a problem with you? I have. I've talked to my wife that way. I want to be a good man to you. What do you want me to do? What can I do different? And she, knowing Rainey, she'd just say I had to cut off my leg and give it to her on a silver platter. And I'd say, well, accept that. Let's be reasonable. So it's important when you deal with painful differences with your spouse, you got to focus on what you're willing and able to do to help resolve the conflict. What can you bring to the table to help make it better? Even though you're blaming the other person in your head. So instead of focusing on your partner's shortcomings and faults, only you have the power over your own ability to cope and to change. So expressing a willingness to do whatever you can to resolve your conflict can make a major difference. So number 3, be aware of each other's vulnerabilities and be gentle with your criticisms. This means no ultimatums, no hitting below the belt. Aha! I know how you grieve over your lost bunny rabbit from when you were 6 years old. Well, I hate bunny rabbits. Hitting below the belt is not fair. The you always statements or you never statements, got to get rid of those. Don't blame the other person. You make me so angry. But reporting of feelings such as I get angry when, this can make a significant difference in your ability to work together and cope through conflict with the other person. Agree to disagree on some matters. Not every conflict can be neatly resolved and packed up and put a little bow on it. It doesn't always work that way. So rather than letting it slip underground, talk openly about your differences. Talk openly about the way you view things, your differences of opinions about the matters and their preferences, and find ways to work together to tolerate each other's point of view. When both make the decision to learn to tolerate and accept some of the habits and beliefs that irritated and disappointed us about the other person, our relationships improve immensely. You can make it work because, above all, you truly love each other, right? So number 4, let go of the expectation of perfection. And this is the last thing. And we'll have to close on this. Forgive yourself and forgive your partner for not being perfect and for disagreeing in ways both major matter. That sounds sing-songy. It sounds so dopey. It sounds so, Hallmark movie. It's not. This is the way you make your life work. Forgive yourself for not being perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm sorry. Forgive me. You have to forgive yourself. And forgive your partner for not being perfect. For disagreeing. Forgive yourselves for disagreeing with each other. Emphasize what does work in a positive way and what you value in your relationship. And let your spouse know that you appreciate his or her efforts to do the same. And live day by day in gratitude for the life you're sharing, however imperfect it might be. Let your partner know how graciously, how much gratitude you have for your relationship, and let's make this work the best way we can. even with its imperfections. Folks, we got to go. 23-hour break. We'll be back tomorrow night, pending disaster of any kind.